Good afternoon, and welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. I'm Brenden Rendo with the Homes in Orlando team, and joined as always by Joseph Dionne of Appli Home Loans. Good afternoon. How you doing?
Doing good. It's an exciting day. You know what? I hate volatility, but I kind of like it. It makes it entertaining. There's so much going on.
A lot of stuff hit the market this morning. A lot of stuff. I think we'll start with, say, the Challenger report, because these numbers kind of blew me out of the water.
Yeah.
So basically, U.S. employers announced 172,000 job cuts in the month of February. That is about what, four times the past couple months levels. And I think part of those numbers do reflect the cuts from the federal government. But what's interesting is if you look at the unemployment rate and stuff, jobless claims, you're not seeing a big jump there currently.
Yeah, not yet.
And not yet. I guess there's something I was reading this morning. There's the way they count the government jobs is different for unemployment than private sector jobs.
So government job, why would they be different? Because they're government jobs? Is it like a land of make-believe and magic? Like government jobs don't exist when they're lost, but they count when they're made? Is it something like that?
Something like that, yes. Yeah, it is. It really is kind of funky the way they do it. And I read it and I'm like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but it's the government, so who knows how that happens.
Yes.
So that combined with our ADP employment report, this was not good either.
That's low. Only 77,000 jobs added?
77,000 new private sector jobs for the month of February. So normally, I think when you see numbers like this, what would you expect the markets to do?
Go to safety.
Which is?
Bonds.
Okay. So if you go to safety and bonds, what usually happens to the yield?
Well, usually it goes down.
Usually. Not today.
Ah.
Because our good friends over in Germany decided to announce yesterday that, hey, we are going to borrow 500 billion euros.
That's a lot. 500 billion.
Huge amount.
500 billion euro. We spend more than that pretty, in deficit annually. So
yeah. But it's just like they put it under infrastructure and military. Infrastructure is like you can do anything you want with it, right?
Yeah. The military one's interesting right there, and because, well, first off, there's certain countries when they tell you that they're ramping up their military presence, you always just have a little bit of you think back, you look back, and you go, ooh. That's really interesting, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with kind of U.S.'s military, what we talked about, and pulling back out in certain areas.
It's interesting. It comes on the heels of Trump's announcement that, hey, he's going to be cutting military aid to Ukraine.
Yep.
And the Europeans, they just seem like they kind of want this war to go on. And we're at the point like, no, we need to settle this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Zelensky, of course, after meeting with Trump, went back to Europe and said, hey, we need $250 billion to keep this war going. And you're seeing here now, Germany says they're going to borrow 50 billion. And it just took their bond market, just crashed. Their yields have shot up tremendously in the past couple days. And what's interesting is on the heels of that announcement, the Central European Bank actually announced that they were cutting their overnight rate by 25 basis points.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, you're cutting the rates here, you're borrowing money here. And what does that usually cause?
Cutting rate, that's going to create additional inflation, I feel like.
It should. It should. But they're sitting here saying that their inflation numbers for the next couple of years, they're estimating 2.3 in 2025, 1.9 in 2026, and 2 in 2027.
I don't know.
I think you're being a little optimistic.
I think so.
With those numbers, especially if your bond rates keep going through the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And this has kind of marked a big sell-off throughout the entire world. Japan, which, they were in negative area for an extremely long time, back in, 2020, 2019, we finally started, coming back to an even. They actually have gone up to 1.5%, which they haven't seen since nearly 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire kind of world is going through a sell-off in the bond market, because if we were isolated in the U.S. today, I think what we would have hoped for is to see the 10-year drop.
Yeah.
And voila, not dropping today, 4.28. It's actually gone up a little bit.
Just a hair, just a tick.
Just a hair. But it's not like the German bond market, not like the Japanese bond market. But I think if we were in an isolated situation, we probably would have seen this drop. I think our yields might get down to around 4%, because you look at the job cuts, the slower employment, slower economy, which usually means people are going to run to the safety, possible, the R word, the recession word. So people generally run to the bond market during the recessions, which, price of bonds goes up, yields go down.
Yeah.
And that's just not happening right now with our market.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have to watch this over the next several months to see how the different markets play out.
What's really interesting is I'm looking at the charts on some more technicals. We hit a level of support 2 days ago on the 4th at 4.126. We dropped briefly below that. And then we immediately bounced off, and now we're back up. And today we actually touched, which if we would have had this live at 10 a.m., we'd be singing a different tune, because we were right up at 4.33.
Yep.
Now we're pulled back a little bit.
Yeah.
But, to where bonds aren't looking so bad, for us. But that's kind of, it's kind of interesting, because, and I say bad, I say bad because I technically like bonds to be lower, because typically lower bonds means MBS is higher, which typically means lower interest rates. I like when the 10-year UST, the T-bill, and all that fun stuff goes down. Right.
Yep.
So you look at that, and it's really interesting movement right now.
Yep. And it's interesting dynamics. I mean, we're really in two different economic worlds right now. You've got Europeans who look like they're about to go Zerpenberg again. If anyone doesn't know that technical term, basically it means money printing. There go the printers. And we're really, really trying to tighten our government spending.
Yeah.
So Germany's going against all their principles, because they're actually having to write an exemption for the quote military from their tight fiscal policies. So they're exempting that from their debt numbers. Well, isn't that convenient?
I wish I could do that. Hey, like
Yeah.
my mortgage, can we just exempt it from my DTI?
Yeah,
Like,
my golf bill is exempt from my family budget. You know?
and the wife be okay with it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right.
All right. So yeah, it very because and this kind of goes into things that happen. Like we're world economy in a lot of respects now.
Mhm.
Things that happen everywhere in another part of the country is impacting the entire world, and things that we're doing is impacting the world. Like it could be said that it was our actions to say we're pulling, reducing military efforts in Ukraine, so like could have led to this very next piece. All makes sense. Timeline.
Yeah, timeline.
So, and then it has a financial impact on us.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
you mentioned the R world, the recessionary where it is interesting to see, you look at SPY, S&P 500 down big again, almost
Mhm.
2%. It's down over 5.5% in a month.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
that makes you feel like, are we heading toward what is a correction? 10%? Like 10% is a correction
10%.
technically.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yep.
So like, are we heading toward a correction? Are we heading toward, is it a blip? All the post-election pump is gone.
It is. I mean, you look at the numbers, it's been wiped out. The post-election stock market numbers were back to the levels, right at the election. And very tense feelings, I think, right now. Very
Yeah.
tense feelings in a lot of areas, economically.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you've got, like I said, you've got two different worlds going on right now. Two
Mm-hmm.
very different worlds. You've got the old, which is, okay, we're going to inflate our way out of everything. We're just going to devalue everything. We'll turn on the money printers like we have in the past several times.
Yep.
And then you've got, the United States right now is like, nope, we're not doing that again. We're going to cut. We're going to hold. We're going to stop this. We're going to stop the wasteful spending. And you're going to, with that, and this is the hardest part, I think, for a lot of people, is we've had pain, but we've never had real tough pain before.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have to go through a little bit of pain to get these numbers back in line. And
Mm-hmm.
I think in a lot of ways, I think it's a better solution overall. I think it may cause us a little more pain in the short term, but to get the government back, if we get our spending, Elon said yesterday, his target's $1 trillion out of the budget. $1 trillion. And if you look at that and you look at what we're borrowing at, if we can cut $1 trillion, what that will do as far as savings in the bond market, fantastic. But you got to go through the pain of doing the cuts initially. And that's sometimes when you got people yelling and screaming, it's tough to keep the ship pointed in the right direction. Hopefully they will, and God willing, we'll all get through this. Maybe a little bit of pain, but hey, for the long, it has to be done. The cutting, the change in the economic philosophy of getting away from the money printing, inflating ourselves out of everything has to stop. I mean, I was going through the Stellar report. They just came out with, Stellar LMLS comes out with their yearly report, and you go back and you look at the numbers, and from 2020, houses are up 50%, 50.3%. And I mean, you just look at that. I mean, that's astronomical. There's nothing normal in that. That's not a normal appreciation in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, I had a conversation with, someone earlier today. It's like, something's going to break. It's what's going to break first. That's the part you're sitting there trying to figure out. So what's going to break? Will it be the prices? Will it be interest rates? Something's got to break to make this affordable for people. So, I mean, one of the interesting things that I got out of this report today was this. You remember back, when COVID started, where was everybody rushing to? Florida.
They were moving. Yeah, they were moving to Florida. People love Florida.
They love Florida. You got great weather, great tax rate. You know, it was just, it seemed like everybody was moving to Florida, and that was one of the reasons why prices went up so quick, because we didn't have the inventory of homes for the people who were relocating to Florida. And this number just kind of astonished me. These are the numbers from last year. Is even though we had 637,000 new residents, over here, 500,000 moved out. Our actual net migration for last year was only 26,000 people. And that number is down 90% from 2022. So you're taking out nearly 230,000 people are out of the housing market from 2 years ago.
Wow.
That is a huge number. And that, I think that gives me a lot of explanation of why we're seeing the inventory growing so much, is that the actual number of people moving out is so close to the number of people moving in that the demand that was there back in 2022 has completely been wiped out. So now we're really kind of just selling to people within Florida itself. You know, we're still one of the top locations for international investing, but it's not going to make up anywhere close to the number of people who aren't migrating to Florida anymore. It just knocks the numbers totally off kilter. So I thought this was one of the most interesting numbers that I've got out of that entire report today. But then let's, go into our numbers for this week for Orlando. And it was actually a very good week, end of the month. And we actually saw our housing numbers jump up to 446 from 325.
Okay.
That's a great jump. Very nice jump. But what's interesting is our inventory, even with the extra homes being sold this week, our inventory still increased again.
Okay.
Only about 43 units, but it's still increased.
Yeah.
And then our condo market, man, it is just sitting there, doldrum along, 111,
It's not so much.
No, it's not. I mean, we've got 4,300 condo units available in our market right now. That is an absolute huge number. Then, the numbers we always like to look at every week. Here's our active listings. We're up over 8,000 right now. And then our original list, the final price, on average, people are cutting about $18,000 off the original. That's a good chunk of change. That's not bad at all. And then the original list to sales price, we're coming in at roughly about 93.6%. So there's a lot of room in there. And I still got people asking me, when are prices really gonna drop? And it's like, well, they're dropping pretty good. In a lot of the markets, a lot of the different price ranges, they're dropping pretty good. And our average days on market just is staying up there, holding it, above the 70 mark. It's 76 homes.
So I have a question for you. I'm looking at this, and I noticed that under 250 sees a large drop. I mean, the under 250, 94.62 final list to sale, right?
Yep.
Final list to sale price.
And their original list, look at that. It's 90.5 to final.
And looking across the line, the only area that's worse is the over 1 million, which we know for the over. But this is the 250 and under. What is this just? And I'm going to ask this: is this just people going, my house is worth 200. I'm going to list at 225 because you can't find anything else for this price?
A lot of it is. A lot of it is. And those homes that are in that price range, you're looking at some much smaller homes
Mm-hmm.
as well. So where the average home size, I believe, in Orlando is around 1,600, 1,700 square feet. What you
Mm-hmm.
find is a lot of the homes in that 250 and under are the 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 square foot homes.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't, they're not comfortable in that small of a home, which I find interesting is because so many of the homes, back in the, 50s, 60s,
Mm-hmm.
early 70s were built to that size. And we've just gotten used to having bigger homes. My first home was it was in Winter Park, and I think it was 1,100 square feet. And I remember the closets were about this big.
It was a 5-bedroom too.
And you're just, well, it's funny because it was originally a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And they converted one garage and added another garage on the side, so you actually had at least a 1-car garage. So they had expanded on, but I think a lot of people just are so used, they want to have, quote, their room. But
Yeah.
if you can't afford the room, you got to, give up. You got to give up a little bit for that, and to me, I'd much rather, I think, own a house that's 1,000, 1,100 square foot house and have a $2,000 payment than having an 1,100, 1,200 square foot apartment and be paying $2,500.
I mean, yeah.
Long term, there's so many things that you could do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would counsel someone, okay, well, keep it for 5 years, and then turn it into a rental. Take the equity you got, go buy another house, keep it as a rental, because
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be able to rent it for that price. I think that's a lot of it. It's just people don't like the small, aren't as intrigued with the small houses, but their affordability is there. I mean, we get into the graphs and everything, it's going to show us the same thing is,
Mm-hmm.
we're just, our inventory's climbing, days on market's climbing. And until we've been talking, until something breaks, I don't see, you know, I don't see the market, softening up a little bit. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was very interesting to see that the Orlando metro area, because I think you had asked me a couple weeks ago, you had heard a little bit about that.
Yeah.
People are coming back into the metro areas, and the Orlando metro area, their growth in purchase mortgages was up 8% last year. So I think that is part of it. Then you looked at, I think it was Volusia, Osceola, Lake County. Their purchase mortgages were down anywhere from 1.5% to about 5%.
Yeah.
So interesting. I'm not one for the city life myself. So it's totally contrary to what I would expect.
Well, are you in the metro technically of Orlando?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Altamont would not be considered the metro.
Okay. I'm
I don't
trying to
think.
remember like how far it goes. I mean, then again, Orlando is like such a wide city
It's
based off
huge.
of landmass.
Yeah. Well, Lake Nona is actually considered part of Orlando, you
Mm-hmm.
know, even though it's really kind of like its own little city, that
Yep.
is actually considered part of Orlando. So, that's they've had, I mean, there's where a tremendous amount of growth has gone.
Mm-hmm.
So, because what do they got? They got Orange County, City of Orlando,
City of Orlando.
government, and something else. It's just, Orlando's kind of just taken up all of Orange County lately.
Pretty much.
A
It
good,
feels.
a
I mean,
good
Orlando's one.
portion of it. So, but those are our numbers. Going to be interesting over the next week or so to see if the bond markets turn around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see if other countries in Europe follow Germany's lead.
Yeah.
That's going to, I think, push a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And we actually didn't even get into tariffs much today.
Not really. And well, you saw like the stock market respond so wildly because it's like, oh, it dropped because of the tariffs that went into effect on the 4th. But then Trump kind of rolled back and gave a little bit of a month exemption for U.S. automakers. So then the stock market rallied. But like right now, like what's kind of funny is the market's acting the way it did the last time Trump was in office, extremely volatile. Like what he says has an impact on across like different. But I'm curious. I think personally, I'm really curious to see what tomorrow's because tomorrow we have the jobs reports coming out.
Yes.
We got so that's a lot. And then what'll be fun as well is like tomorrow will be interesting to see how markets are because we're going to get an idea what a lot of these federal Fed members, so to speak, think of things. You got like the Fed governor, Michelle Bowman talks tomorrow. Then you got the New York Fed president, Williams speaks tomorrow. Fed governor Adriana Kruger speaks tomorrow. Jerome Powell speaks tomorrow. Like tomorrow could be a wild, crazy day based on those conversations of them just giving their thoughts.
Yes.
And I'm curious. I'm just really curious because like you have Whaler talks today at 3:30, so that's coming up. I always like when Whaler talks. He's fun. Markets usually react a little bit to him.
Yep.
But I'm curious to see if it's kind of like a united front.
It'll be interesting. I'm really curious to see what they say about Europe, about Germany.
Yeah,
like, I really am.
I think we're going to see. So I think tomorrow we can have a big. I remember a couple of weeks back we had a big sell-off on Friday when it had typically been rallying on Fridays, and everybody's like, "It's going to rally," and it sold off, and it kind of caught everybody by storm. But here we go. We've got jobs report, which I think is going to be a little bit worse.
Yeah.
So we probably won't feel the real brunt of stuff for another month or so. But really, I'm more interested to see are all these Fed members going to kind of unite in how they talk about the direction we're heading, or are we going to see a little bit of indecision and a little bit of like I think this and I think that and I think like and they're going to contradict each other a little bit, which
that's going to cause.
I feel like I want to see that because that's going to let me know like hey. There's a little tension in there, which means that they're actually working on trying to make things better. Because if they all agree, then
exactly. Well, thanks for joining us again, Joe, and everyone. Thank you for joining us, and please remember to like and subscribe, and join us every Thursday for the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Have a great one, guys.